I've never told anyone this version of the story before. Not my parents, not even my closest friends. But if I don't put it out somewhere, it'll eat me alive. I'm 21 now. But when I was 18, during my senior year in a small town in Oregon, my life became something out of a horror movie. I was dating a girl named Lena, someone kind and quiet, who grounded me when the rest of senior year felt chaotic. We lived in a town called Maplewood, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where gossip spreads faster than wildfire. And in a place like that, nothing stays buried. Not even people from your past, because out of nowhere I reconnected with someone I thought I'd left behind for good. Clara Holt. Clara and I had a childish middle school relationship, holding hands, doodling hearts and notebooks, texting late at night about nothing important. That was years ago. She moved away in 8th grade and I never expected to hear from her again. But one night she sent me a message on Snapchat. "Hey, long time no see. Remember me?" At first it felt innocent. I told her I was seeing someone. She laughed it off and said she was happy for me. But slowly she started messaging more. First once a week, then every night, then every hour. Her tone shifted. The jokes about "remember when we used to" turned into paragraphs about how she'd never gotten over me. How seeing pictures of me and Lena made her sick. At first I ignored it. But then Clara started showing up in Maplewood. It didn't make sense. She supposedly lived 45 minutes away. Yet she always seemed to bump into me. Once, Lena and I went to a coffee shop we loved. Clara was there, alone, sitting 2 tables away pretending to read. But she never ordered anything. Just stared. Another time I went to the grocery store with my mom, and Clara was in the parking lot leaning against her car, smiling, not waving, just staring. Then came the accounts. At first, fake Instagrams sending Lena cruel messages. "He's only with you because he feels sorry for you. He'll come back to me. He always does." Then came the photos. Old pictures I'd sent Clara years ago, harmless middle school selfies edited to look recent. She spread them in group chats at school. In a town like Maplewood, where everyone whispers, it was devastating. Lena tried to be strong, but I could see the way it drained her. She stopped posting online. She cried some nights, asking why Clara hated her when they'd never even met. By winter, Clara's obsession went from online to physical. I started noticing a silver Honda parked near my street late at night, sometimes with the lights off, sometimes idling. Once, around midnight, someone tapped on my bedroom window. When I yanked the blinds open, nothing. Except that same Honda parked a block down. I barely slept anymore. Every buzz of my phone made my stomach sink. When I told my parents, they brushed it off. My dad said, "She's just being dramatic." My mom told me to block her. But blocking didn't matter. She always made new accounts. The school counselor was no help. Since Clara's harassment was off campus, they said there wasn't much they could do. But Clara wanted me to know she was in control. One day I found a folded note tucked under my windshield wiper in the school parking lot. Written in thick red marker, "I see the way you touch her hand. You never touched mine like that." After that, I parked off campus. I deleted my socials. But she always found me. The final straw came one February night. Lena called me sobbing. Someone had been banging on her bedroom window for nearly 10 minutes straight. When her dad came outside with a flashlight, whoever it was bolted into the trees behind the house. Lena swore. Before they ran, she saw Clara's face. I drove straight there and called the cops. They took a report, but without evidence. Nothing stuck. Clara denied everything. In fact, she told officers that we were harassing her. After that night, Lena's parents forced her to cut things off with me completely. They said they didn't want their daughter dragged into my drama. And then, it all stopped. The car disappeared. The fake accounts went silent. No more notes. No more window knocks. Clara vanished from my life as suddenly as she had reappeared. But the damage was already done. Lena and I never got back together. At school, the whispers never really stopped. Some treated it like a joke. Others acted like I'd invited the chaos myself. It's been nearly 3 years now. I live in a different town. But sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, I still tense up when I see a silver Honda in my rearview mirror. I've looked up Clara a few times, just out of morbid curiosity. The last I saw, she was smiling on Facebook with a fiancé, looking completely normal. But I know better, because people like Clara don't just change. They obsess, they wait, they watch. And every time my phone buzzes from an unknown number, I wonder if it's starting again. I grew up in a mountain town in Colorado that rarely showed up on maps. Just a cluster of wooden houses pressed against endless pine forests, and a single road that disappeared into the hills. It was the kind of place where people minded their own business, and everyone whispered the same warning. Don't wander near the Black Hollow after dark. I'm 29 now, but the autumn when I was 15 still hangs in the back of my head like a fever dream. Back then, Halloween wasn't about candy. It was about testing limits, pushing fear, and most of all, messing with the old recluse who lived near the hollow. His name was Ezekiel Crane. Ezekiel's cabin was the last one on our road, standing where the trees thickened into a wall of black pines. He was in his late 70s, tall, bony, with a hunched back and a face carved by years of silence. He wore the same brown overcoat year-round and carried an oil lantern everywhere, even during the day. The kids in town nicknamed him the Lantern Man. Rumor was his wife had disappeared decades ago, swallowed by the hollow. Others said he had killed her and buried her beneath the roots of the trees. Nobody knew the truth, but everyone knew Ezekiel hated kids, especially me and my cousin Ryan. It became our tradition every Halloween, us versus the Lantern Man. When we were 12, we egged his cabin. At 13, we left a dead raccoon on his porch. At 14, Ryan spray-painted "Boo" across his woodpile. Every year, Ezekiel came stomping out, lantern swinging, muttering curses in that cracked, rasping voice. But he never called the sheriff, never told our parents, just shook his lantern and growled the same thing. The hollow will take its due, and so will I. We always laughed it off. But the Halloween when we turned 15, things shifted. That October night was unseasonably warm, perfect for mischief. Ryan and I had been plotting for weeks, ready to outdo every prank we'd pulled before. We filled a backpack with smoke bombs, a motion sensor that blasted screams, and a ragged scarecrow head we'd painted with dripping black eyes. As the sun bled into the mountains, we passed Ezekiel's place. And that's when we froze. His cabin was decorated. Strings of cheap orange lights flickered across the porch. Paper bats hung from the windows. A carved pumpkin with a crooked grin sat glowing by the door. Ezekiel Crane, the man who'd never celebrated anything, had dressed his cabin for Halloween. Ryan smirked. He's trying to get ahead of us. He wants us to bite. We both knew it was bait. But that only made it better. At 11 p.m., when the trick-or-treaters had vanished and the town fell quiet, we crept through the trees toward his cabin. The only light was the pumpkin's faint glow. The forest around us was unnervingly still. No crickets, no owls, just the low whistle of wind weaving through branches. I whispered, "Something's off." Ryan just grinned, handing me the scarecrow head. "That's the point." We split up. Ryan circled toward the shed near the hollow while I stayed closer to the cabin, searching for a place to hide the motion sensor. That's when I noticed something strange. The pumpkin by the door was sagging, collapsing inward, as if rotting in fast motion. I blinked, staring. It hadn't been like that minutes ago. Before I could process it, a sharp metallic clang rang out from the shed. Then silence. "Ryan?" I hissed. No answer. I crept toward the shed. The padlock, old and rusted just hours before, was now snapped tight, glinting under the moonlight. My chest tightened. Ryan didn't have a key. I pressed my ear against the door. At first, nothing. Then, a muffled thud, a strained, gagged sound. "Ryan?" I whispered louder. My voice trembled. That's when I saw it. A lantern mounted above the shed, its flame glowing steady. Beneath it hung a wooden sign carved with one word: "Trick." My blood ran cold. This wasn't our prank anymore. It was his. I yanked at the lock, smashed it with a rock, but it wouldn't budge. Panic clawed through me. I stumbled back, glancing at the cabin. The windows were dark, but I felt it. Eyes on me, watching from the shadows. I bolted to the dirt road, frozen under the single flickering streetlight. My mind raced. Run home and risk the sheriff exposing our pranks, or go back into the lantern man's trap. I couldn't leave Ryan. I circled the cabin, desperate. The front door was bolted, the windows nailed shut. Then I spotted a cellar door half buried in the ground, its wood soft with rot. I jammed our screwdriver into the crack and pried until it splintered. The stench hit me first. Mildew, rust, and something sharp like dried blood. I slid down into the cellar, my breath shallow. Inside were shelves lined with jars, some filled with cloudy liquid, others with unrecognizable things floating inside. Masks, costumes, broken dolls scattered the floor. Pinned along the walls were dozens of photos. Kids from town dressed for Halloween. Photos of me and Ryan. One showed us at 12, throwing eggs. Another at 13, laughing as we ran past his porch. Others taken through our bedroom window. My stomach lurched. He'd been watching, waiting. I crept upstairs, every step groaning under my weight. The kitchen was pitch black except for an oil lantern burning faintly on the table, still warm like it had just been placed there. I grabbed it, rushed outside, and back to the shed. With shaking hands, I pried the hinge bolts loose. The door groaned open. Ryan was inside, pale, wrists bound with rope. He looked at me with wide, terrified eyes, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me. I turned. Across the yard, Ezekiel Crane stood, lantern in hand, face hidden in the shadows. His voice was low, broken. "The hollow takes what's owed. Tonight, it chose you." I froze. Then he lifted his lantern high, and every light on his cabin flickered to life at once. Strings of orange bulbs, glowing pumpkins, paper bats, all blazing bright, except they weren't decorations anymore. The bats twitched. The pumpkins pulsed like breathing flesh. Shadows poured from the cabin walls, spilling into the yard. I grabbed Ryan and ran. We didn't stop until we reached the main road, lungs burning, hearts pounding. The sheriff never believed us. Our parents thought it was just another prank gone too far. But every year since, Ezekiel decorates his cabin the exact same way. Same crooked pumpkin, same paper bats. Like a ritual, a reminder. I still pass through that mountain town sometimes. The cabin still stands, lantern glowing by the door. And I still wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't gone back for Ryan? I never believed in curses. Not in witches, not in rituals, not in things that lurk in the woods. At least, not until last month. My name is Ethan Price, I'm 29, and I live alone in Asheville, North Carolina. My days were simple before this. Work, bills, late-night coffee runs. My weekends were spent exploring trails in the Blue Ridge Mountains with a small group of friends, people I've known since college. That weekend, it was me, Lucas, Maya, and Derek. Just a casual hike, a break from the noise of town. The spot we chose wasn't on any official map, just a rough path we found online. That should have been the first red flag. The forest felt different the moment we stepped off the gravel road. Dense. Heavier somehow, like the air itself was warning us to turn back. We ignored it. For hours we laughed, climbed rocks, and wandered deeper. Then Maya spotted something. A circle of stones blackened as if scorched by fire. In the center lay a pile of bones, small, animal-like. At first we thought it was just the remains of a campfire. But then we noticed the symbols carved into the stones. Strange, jagged markings. Probably some wannabe occult kids, Derek muttered. But his voice didn't sound as confident as usual. As we pushed further in, the signs multiplied. Wooden effigies hung from branches, swaying gently even though the air was still. Strips of faded fabric tied to trunks, old candles half melted into the dirt. And then there was the tree. A massive ancient oak split down the middle, its bark scarred with carvings that didn't look like letters from any language I know. Nailed into it were skulls, animal, maybe human. The sight made my stomach twist. Let's just go back, Lucas whispered. Nobody argued. We left fast, not speaking until we reached the car. We swore not to tell anyone, not to post pictures, not to tempt whatever we'd stumbled into. But I broke that promise. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I uploaded 3 photos to an online forum. Nothing personal, just the symbols, the crosses, and the tree. A few users commented, calling it backwoods witchcraft or an old Appalachian burial rite. I didn't think much of it until I got the first message. It was nearly 1 a.m. My phone buzzed. No words, just a picture. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. It was my porch, and taken from across the street. The timestamp showed it had been taken just minutes earlier. I froze, staring at the screen. Then I peeked through the blinds. Nobody. Just the empty street. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house sounded like a footstep. The next night, it happened again. Another photo, this one closer. My living room window, the curtain half open, the glow of my TV inside. I was in that room when it was taken. I slammed the curtains shut and checked every lock twice. But sleep never came. By morning, I called Lucas. I tried to sound calm, but my voice shook. He admitted something strange had happened to him too. Not a photo. His phone had lit up at 3 a.m. with a message containing nothing but static. Maya said she hadn't received anything. Derek just laughed it off, but I could hear the edge in his voice. That same evening, I installed a cheap security camera above my front door. I thought it would make me feel safer. It didn't. because when I checked the footage the next morning, my blood ran cold. At 2:46 a.m., a figure walked up to my porch. Tall, thin, wrapped in a dark hooded coat. They didn't knock, didn't move. They just stood there for 5 minutes, staring straight into the camera. Only their face was hidden, completely swallowed by a shadow as if the lens refused to capture it. I called the police. They filed a report, but nothing came of it. A few nights later, Maya called crying. Her cat was gone. She swore she'd locked the door, but it had been wide open when she woke up. She wouldn't stay alone anymore. Derek went silent. When I finally reached him, he admitted he'd been hearing knocking at night. Not on the door, from inside the house. Lucas deleted all his social media. He stopped answering calls. As for me, the messages didn't stop. They changed. Now they came with words, one word at a time. Always after 2 a.m., confess, return, blood. Sometimes nothing but the sound of a knock through the speaker, like someone was pressing their phone to my door. I changed numbers. The messages kept coming. One morning, I stepped into my backyard and nearly collapsed. Someone had left a crude wooden idol, wrapped in feathers and twine, nailed to the tree outside my window. My yard is fenced, locked. No one could have gotten in without breaking something. But nothing was broken. I slept in my car that night, 2 streets away. I didn't want them to know I was still in the house. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. No more texts, no more figures on the camera, no more knocks. The silence was almost worse. Lucas moved to Ohio. Maya quit hiking altogether. Derek vanished from social media completely. We don't talk much anymore. None of us want to. Some nights, when the house is quiet, I hear it again. A soft knock. Not at the door this time. From inside. I don't check. I don't want to know. Because I've learned something. Some places are left forgotten for a reason. And some things, they don't want to be buried. I grew up in a small industrial town in Ohio, the kind of place where smoke from the paper mill coated everything with a faint gray dust, and the smell of chemicals lingered in the air no matter how far you walked. It was 1979, and I had just turned 18. My world back then was small. School, the diner where I worked part-time, and Sunday service at St. Mary's, where my mother sang hymns with her sharp, unwavering voice. My father was a stern man, a factory foreman with little patience for mistakes. And my mother, though kinder, believed deeply in appearances. In our town, appearances mattered more than truth. That summer, I met Daniel Whitmore. Daniel was the youngest son of Senator Harold Whitmore, a man whose name could hush a room faster than a gunshot. The Whitmores owned half the factories in the county, and everyone either worked for them or owed them. Daniel was different, or at least he seemed so. He had shaggy blonde hair, a laugh that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds, and a way of making you feel like you were worth more than the life you'd been handed. We started meeting in secret, down by the abandoned railway tracks, in the shadows of Hollow Pines Forest where the trees stood so tall and close, it always felt like they were listening. I didn't tell anyone, not even my best friend Sarah, because deep down I knew what people would say. A girl like me wasn't meant for a boy like him. When I found out I was pregnant, it was a Tuesday morning. I sat in the tiny bathroom of the diner after closing, the fluorescent light flickering above me, holding a pharmacy test I had bought from a town 40 miles away just so no one would recognize me. My hands trembled so badly I thought I'd drop it. The result was clear, and so was the fear clawing at my chest. Daniel was the first person I told. He didn't say much at first, just pressed his palm against his forehead, pacing back and forth. Then he promised me, in that soothing voice, that we'd figure it out. I believed him. But the next day he came back changed. His smile was gone, his eyes cold. He said his family would handle it, that they had a plan. I didn't understand what he meant until it was too late. Within a week, my parents told neighbors that I'd had a nervous collapse. That's the word they used, collapse. They said I needed rest, somewhere quiet, away from stress. By quiet, they meant a decrepit farmhouse on the outskirts of Hollow Pines, where an elderly relative of my mother's lived alone. Her name was Agnes, though she insisted I call her Aunt Aggie. She was in her 70s, frail, with cloudy eyes and hands that shook when she poured tea. She rarely spoke, except to quote scripture or mutter superstitions. Her curtains stayed drawn, her doors locked at sundown. She claimed it was to keep the forest shadows out. The house itself was suffocating. No television, no radio, no phone. Just stacks of religious tracts and a heavy Bible with brittle pages that seemed to whisper when I turned them. I spent my days staring out the window at the endless wall of pines, their dark silhouettes swaying like watchmen. At night, the house creaked and moaned as though it were alive. Sometimes I thought I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my room, though Agnes swore she never left her bed after dark. Once, I woke to the faint sound of whispering, but when I opened the door, only silence pressed against my ears. I wasn't allowed to leave. Agnes said the Whitmores wanted me safe. Safe, but hidden. Weeks stretched into months. My body changed, but no letters came, no visits from Sarah, no word from my parents. I was vanishing, erased from my own life. Then one evening, headlights cut through the trees, and a black Cadillac pulled into the dirt driveway. Through the window, I saw Senator Whitmore himself step out. He didn't come inside. He just spoke to Agnes in a low voice on the porch. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the way she kept her eyes on the ground, nodding. That night, Agnes brought me a suitcase. "Pack," she said flatly. "They found a better place?" My chest tightened. I asked where, but she wouldn't answer. Just pushed the suitcase into my hands and shuffled away. I didn't sleep that night. My mind spun with thoughts I couldn't quiet. What if they erased me completely? The next morning, Daniel came. His once bright face looked hollow, sleepless. He didn't step inside, just lingered by the door while Agnes handed him the suitcase. He muttered something about a clinic in Pennsylvania. Said it would all be taken care of. I begged to tell my parents the truth. That I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't broken. But his eyes darted away. Then his voice cracked, sharp and angry. "It's too late," he hissed. "It's already been arranged." The way he said it chilled me deeper than the coldest night in Hollow Pines. I knew then that if I stayed, I'd vanish. So that night, while Agnes slept, I slipped out the back door with the suitcase and walked down the gravel road, the pines looming around me like silent judges. Every crack of a branch made me jump. It felt like the forest itself didn't want me to leave. Hours later, I stumbled onto a gas station. Inside, a lanky clerk with long hair and gentle eyes let me use the payphone even though I had no coins. My hands shook as I dialed the only number I could remember, Sarah's. When she answered, all I managed to whisper was, "It's me." please help Sarah arrive before dawn in her brother's battered truck. When she saw me, she burst into tears. She told me everyone believed I'd been committed to a private institution out west. My parents had been told not to visit. Daniel had returned to school as if nothing had happened. I stayed hidden in Sarah's basement for weeks, her family pretending not to notice, though I knew they understood something was deeply wrong. Finally, Sarah helped me find a women's shelter in Cleveland, a place that took in girls like me. It was there that I gave birth to my daughter, a fragile, beautiful child with dark hair and piercing eyes. I named her Grace. Years later, at a wedding, one of Daniel's cousins, drunk and careless, let slip the truth. The Whitmores had paid doctors to sign false papers, declaring I'd suffered a psychiatric collapse. They planned to send me away, take Grace, and erase me from memory. Just a liability, just an inconvenience to their spotless reputation. I never saw Daniel again. He followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a lawyer, building a career on secrets and silence. I changed my name, moved to another state, and raised Grace alone. She grew into a fierce, brilliant woman, unafraid of shadows. She doesn't yet know the full story. One day I'll tell her, not so she pities me, but so she knows the truth about power, about silence, and about survival. Because even now, decades later, people in that Ohio town whisper that I was the girl who lost her mind. Maybe it's easier for them to believe the lie. Let them. The truth is, I survived. And sometimes when the night is too quiet, I still hear the pines shifting as though they're whispering the secrets I left behind.